Now, what would happen if NATO and the U.S. pulled out of Afghanistan? And what would be the real price of peace there? No one can say for certain, that's clear. But there are some potential scenarios, including some kind of reconciliation with the Taliban. Time magazine looks at that possibility in its August 9th edition and finds that girls and women could end up paying a very high price indeed, just like this young woman on the cover. Now, you usually don't see images that graphic on U.S. magazine covers. South African photographer Jody Bieber took that picture, and many others, as she helped to assemble all of this and put the focus on the women of Afghanistan. We want to talk to her about some of the photos and her experience there in Afghanistan. She joins us now live from her homeland in our Johannesburg bureau. Jody, great to have you with us.
Hi, thanks a lot.
You know, fantastic photos, and I want to talk about Aisha, the woman who is on the cover. She suffered terribly, but in many ways, this picture tells the story of what the women, particularly women in poor rural areas, face.
Well, in terms of Aisha, she ran away from her husband and she ran to her neighbors, and her neighbors called the police, and she landed up in a jail in Kandahar, and her father came to collect her from the jail and gave her back to her husband and in-laws. And the reason she ran away was really because she said she was being abused by her in-laws. And a Taliban commander within the village, basically they had a court, and he said as punishment, the husband would have to cut off her ears and her nose. And they took her into a secluded area. Her uncle held her down, and her husband cut off her nose and her ears. And I think photographically, I didn't want to show Aisha as a victim, because I think, she really is beautiful. And so I spoke to her at length about her beauty and how amazing it was that she was going to go to America and have reconstruction. And I said I wanted to work with her to create a beautiful photograph of her.
You know, as you met her, you met with all of the other women that were here, and we're going to talk about some of them. I think we have a picture of a woman who is a politician, she's seated in front of what appears to be a prized photograph of her own, a photograph alongside President Karzai. What would happen to women like this? I mean, she's in politics now, right?
Yeah, she's in politics. She's fighting for women's rights. She's fighting for the rights of, people in general. And I have heard that water bottles have been thrown at her. As a photographer, I mean, for me, what was more interesting is she's a very powerful woman. She's single. Many people in Parliament are intimidated by her. And
but she would have no place
I think that
in a Taliban-ruled Afghanistan, would she? Like other women that you photographed.
I do believe that if the Taliban did come into power, yes, she would have no place within Afghanistan. At this present moment, that is in Kabul, she has a place. In the southern provinces, culture doesn't always allow for women to have a place.
Well, and women want a place. Women are ascendant today in Afghanistan in terms of their aspirations. You photographed a woman at the racetrack, a woman who was one of the Olympians representing her country and who would like to be the sports minister, right?
Yes, she is an athlete herself, and she would like to become the next sports minister and stand up for the rights of athletes, boxers, sports people within Afghanistan, including the cricket team.
Well, the last 9 years in Afghanistan that's seen such a Western presence has also seen so much change. You photographed a woman who was a presenter on television. There she is now. This was a job you wouldn't normally see people in, certainly not women in Western dress.
She is wearing a headscarf that everyone wears, but it's a very small headscarf. And Mazda has a show which is very similar to the Oprah Winfrey show. She's come back to Afghanistan. She was living in Canada, and she came back about 7 or 8 months ago. And she tries to deal with issues related to the family, related to divorce. And she said, besides the fame and the money, for her, by having this program, she's an activist. So I think there is, I was taken by surprise specifically. I didn't go to the southern province, and I was taken by surprise in Kabul, witnessing and seeing women who are really doing it for their own.
And, finally, before I have to let you go, we've got a picture of a woman in a burqa, which more or less is the past, isn't it? And yet some women find it very comfortable to be dressed that way.
Look, I think, I'm sure in the southern provinces, I haven't been there, you're going to find majority of the women in burqa, but definitely within Kabul, most women have a choice to wear, everyone wears a headscarf of some kind. And I think there are women who wear burqa, but I think that specific photograph speaks around the old and the new.
Right, we see your daughter alongside.
And I think the younger generation, and I really do believe the younger generation want change in Afghanistan.
All right. Jody Bieber, thank you so much for the photographs.